Gardening. It boosts our mood, our mental well-being, our physical health. It feeds us, brings us peace and joy, draws whole communities together. No matter if you're a sophisticated horticulturalist, a flower adorer, or just starting to get green-fingered. No matter if your plants live in a pot or your garden blooms in full. No matter if you like to work with your hands or look for digital inspiration. No matter what season or stage of life, every bit of green planted helps us breathe a little easier and moves us closer to a better, more sustainable future. And we want the whole world to feel it. There are no rules. All it takes to garden is the passion to do so. Realize your gardening dreams. Gardena.
This is the Premier Garden Show. And here is your host, Anthony Faulkner.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Premier Garden Show, episode 81 really, and it's a bonus. It feels like more than a month ago that I had Ciaran come on for a bit of a chat. It feels like longer. I don't know why.
Maybe a little bit.
So welcome,
Great, thanks,
Ciaran.
Anthony.
How is life treating you before?
Oh, life is good, yeah. I mean, it's last time we spoke it was the beginning of July, right at the beginning of July. So it is a little bit over a month since we last talked. So I don't know, it feels like longer though, doesn't it? It feels like it's an age away. But things have been going well in the garden, quieting down a bit at this time of year in the garden centre. So less pressure, you know. But still have customers, still lots of exciting plants coming in. It's all go. Had a few days off in Wexford for the down at the Fla, and yeah, all good.
Yeah, and the weather are just suddenly picking up.
Yeah, it's great. Like I say, I'm outside for our first video. It might be it might be this time next year before I can do it again. So let's make the most of it.
Yeah, I was out in it today now, and I really thought today was warm.
Yeah.
I found it very tough kind of working out in it. It just, I suppose we are not used to it. We didn't have this kind of heat with a while, and then all of a shot today, we went from kind of milder weather to literally a kind of a heat snap.
Yeah. But look, it probably won't last too long. We'll be back to normal then. Autumn is coming.
Yeah, and I think this is whatever we have now, or whatever we get now from this kind of a bit of weather that we're getting. I think this will kind of be the end of it. I think this will be our last bit, because at the end of the day, we won't be long, we'll be out of August, and we're into September.
Yeah. Usually you get in August, one of those mornings you get up and you go out and just suddenly feel different. And you're like, wow, it's the first kind of chilly morning, and you're like, okay, there's that. So it hasn't happened yet, but it's bound to. Of course, the kids will be going back to school, so we might be getting another bit of weather.
Yeah, where we get it won't be long where we'll see a little bit of frost.
Oh, don't say frost.
So I suppose then, Ciaran, we'll start off then. You wanted to talk a little bit about deadheading.
Yeah, well, I had some friends over in the garden, colleagues from work, for a bit of a barbecue there last week, and we were walking around the garden, back kind of behind me, the other side of this border. There's a rose, and I never deadhead it, because when I retire, I'll deadhead it. I'll have the time to do it, because it's a big plant and a lot. So I was walking around, and one of the colleagues, she comes along and she's like, "Oh, why don't you deadhead the rose? Do you not deadhead the rose?" And I was like, "No, this one I don't." But it was coming back it was like it's in its second flush of flowers, so it still actually had the old flowers from earlier on in the summer. And, so deadheading is something which a lot of people talk about. And actually, I get asked about it so many times in work. How do you deadhead, or what's this deadheading? How should I do it? And of course, so this is actually the rose. I cut a little bit of it there, and I'm knocking petals off it there. This is the rose here. It's a lovely rugosa type rose, and has a lovely perfume, which you can't catch on the camera. So it's a lovely perfume, and it's got lovely clusters of flowers. But as I say, like, I don't deadhead, don't have time to get around to deadheading it at that. So of course, the reason why then that you deadhead is that, well, there's a couple of reasons why, and maybe there's reasons why you don't as well. But essentially, most flowers, when they're finished, become fruits, and in the fruits are the seeds. So when a plant is making flowers and they make the fruits, inside are the seeds, and when it has done that, it's accomplished its mission. In the case of an annual plant, it's life mission, but in the case of a shrub or a herbaceous perennial, it's completed its seasonal mission in that it has made fruits with seeds. And after that, as I said, I've done enough, and they won't keep producing, in many cases, loads more flowers. So the advantage of what we call deadheading is that, see, like this one here in the middle, it's a flower with a fruit forming. So when we deadhead, often what we do is we come along and we take away that bit there. Notice I'm taking the stalk and all, not just this bit, but the whole stalk, and we cut it away and we stop the development of the seed. And this gives a signal to the plant, I must produce more flowers. So actually, this is a good example, like, of many of these clustered roses. It's very thorny, so I'm dropping it. But with these clustered roses, they often produce the first flower in the middle, comes earlier, and then the other ones around it. So if we are going to be deadheading these clustered roses, just like that, you remove the first centre part of the cluster, and then let the others develop, and you get the nice flowers afterwards. But when your flower head then starts to look like this one, and basically all gone over, central one is gone, and of course that's another reason why people want a deadhead, is it start to look messy. And in some cases, if you're in a wet year, these might get mold on them and cause infection down into some certain plants. Not so much with roses, but with other plants. So what you do when is you remove the whole cluster. And with roses and many flowering shrubs, you can have a look, you have the flower there, and you have leaves coming down the stem. So you cut back even the top leaf off that, the whole cluster, and away it goes. You put them on the compost heap if there's no disease on them, and from there then you get your new side shoots developing, and you get more roses, more flowers. And that's basically the essence of why we deadhead. So we deadhead so to produce more blooms, a second kind of flush of flowers. Now, it's not magic. Certain plants have their season. So like you have a lupin early in the season, you cut the main flower off, you get a few side shoots developing. But when the flowering season of the lupin is finished, it's finished. That's it. You can cut the whole flower stem down to the base, let the foliage grow, and that's building up the plant's energy stock for next year. So you, if you like, enhance the next phase of the bloom. And with certain plants, like repeat flowering roses, it helps encourage more blooms, right through in some cases until the first frost, or longer in some cases. So that's kind of the reasons kind of why you deadhead, and when you deadhead is basically when the flowers are faded, to stop the seed preventing. So it can be a enjoyable task because it's quite therapeutic going around with your. You notice there I was using a great big scissors. This is one of my favourite garden tools. I use this for everything. I prune things, I deadhead things, cut things with it. I cut, if I'm cutting my pecs, I'll cut wire, twine, wood, everything. It's a good old scissors. I do edges of grass with it. It does just about everything. But of course, you can use the snips, or of course correctly, you should be using a secateurs to get a nice clean cut with the roses. and so you do that. Sharp implement anyway. Do your do the deadheading. So, and also it will enhance the aesthetic appearance, particularly with annual displays and stuff like that, and planters and things like that. So a lot of research has gone in and development into plants to try produce plants which don't necessarily need deadheading. So certain new varieties of begonia and bedding plants, like there's a cross between the petunia and the calabrocca, I think we were talking about last time, the pechoa. You don't need to deadhead them because just the flowers sort of fade away or something. They don't look ugly, and that's great. And of course, the other reason is other plants then, when you deadhead them, you might have something like, this is actually the flower of a gaillardia, or I should say the inflorescence of a gaillardia, because that actually is a cluster of little flowers. Any daisy plant is a basic cluster of flowers. So like that, you take your snips, your secateurs, your scissors, and you cut away the stalk down to the next leaf, and you'll get a second flush of flowers with that. You're preventing them setting seed, and that's a flower of a red hot poker, and you can see loads of seed developing on that. So cut the stalk right down to the base of the leaves, and get rid of that. But of course, if I want a seed to develop, and certain plants can be nice to let them self-seed, or maybe you want to collect seed and sow them, then you don't deadhead. So you don't deadhead if you want seeds, or encourage self-seeding plants in the garden. You leave those alone. And there's another reason maybe why you don't deadhead, is that sometimes the flower stalks can look quite ornamental. So I have a valeriana over there, and it's finished flowering, but I like the seed heads. They look quite nice. But I'm tempted sometimes to cut them down because the self-seeds maybe more than I want, ideally, into the gravel areas. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword in that. But the aesthetic appeal reason wins out with me. I leave the seed heads, and sometimes seed heads can last really quite nice. You know, that Verbena bonariensis can look really quite nice right through into the winter, and those seed heads with a bit of frost on them can be really, really lovely things. So if you want decorative seed heads, don't bother with the deadheading. And there's no rule to say you have to deadhead, but sometimes it gives a nicer, tidier looking plant, but also it'll maybe improves the floral display, or lengthens the floral display in some cases. So yeah, so I was kind of explaining then about the deadheading and talking about the deadheading like that, and maybe kind of think like, look at the garden, and I'm not into a really tidy garden. So, and some people would be. So to me, like, I was walking around and I saw a bit of a nettle peeping up, and somebody says, "Oh, there was, teasing me. Oh, look, you've missed the nettle when you were weeding." And of course, I said, "No, I left that for purpose, for environmental reasons, for biodiversity." And that's also a reason for it. And it is sort of a campaign ongoing. I think even RHS Chelsea Gardens a couple of years ago were saying, like, we should be leaving weeds in the gardens for biodiversity and pollinators, etc. And it never bothers me, like, to see a few weeds, as long as the plants are healthy and well grown, or that they're not weeds to such an extent that it's detracting from the display. So it's kind of, yeah, I think we can be over tidy in the gardens. And of course, there's different situations, different places. In your work, you're looking after, say, the grounds of a sports club. They don't want weeds there, so
And
you have to be on there, bro.
also there's there's gardens then where you kind of have like the likes of bindweed that can be very,
Yeah,
very kind of threatening to a plant.
yeah, and that can be very vigorous and choke out your plants. And of course, if you have younger plants we're establishing, you don't want weeds growing up around them, taking water and nutrients and blocking the light from them, basically damaging the plants. So it's about creating the balance, and it's also what people want. Some people want things nice and tidy. Some people like to see a bit of clean earth around a plant. Well, I don't. I like to see as much plants covering possible. I hate to see earth, but and in those cases, sometimes weeds will grow up between other things, and okay, if they like a willow herb or a dandelion, it gets this, and sometimes I only notice it when it starts flowering, pull it out at that stage, and I don't lose sleep over it, like, oh, there's a couple of weeds in the border, and yeah, for me, it certainly makes the whole gardening experience a bit more relaxing.
Yeah, it's just as you said, like it's just sometimes when you be dealing with clients, it can be. Ciaran, just before we move on, did you give us what was the name of that rose?
Okay, this is a rose now. You won't get it at any garden centre, not even Johnstown Garden Centre. And it's one which it's originally from Latvia, and it has the Latvian name of Ritausma, Ritausma, and it's one of the rugosa hybrids. And you see the foliage there, perfectly clean. It never gets a bit of black spot, rust, or mildew. And this is the great thing about rugosa hybrids. And they grow them in places like Latvia, Finland, Estonia, up around the Baltics quite a lot, and into Canada, because they're incredibly hardy. And they'll take kind of minus 30, minus 40 degrees and not be bothered by it. But so rugosa on its own, it would be kind of one flowering season, make the hips, and then with a bit of breeding and hybridizing, we have these rugosa hybrids which will repeat flower, and there are some good varieties on the markets that you can get. But when they have a perfume, oh, it's so good. It's a really, really beautiful perfume. So it's Rosa Ritausma, available from all good garden centres in Latvia.
Yeah, so people will have to kind of take a bit of a holiday or a trip to
Yeah.
Latvia. But it looks
Well,
from here, it looks a fantastic kind of a
yeah.
pink.
Actually, I bought it in Estonia years ago, so it's also available in Estonia.
Yeah, so I suppose then we move on to some of I suppose you've been busy adding to your collection.
Yeah, every week it's kind of what do they call it, like you're a plantaholic, that you're end up buying plants, and I'm trying to be a bit better now in buying plants, more so for where I see the gaps. So a little bit of planning and not just buying purely on impulse. That's what I'm telling myself anyway, and trying to be. But as part of my job, I love each week looking at the new lists of availability from the nurseries in Ireland and Holland and further afield as well, and looking for what's new, what's coming in. And there's a lot of stuff coming all the time. So this week, yeah, I've got a few here. I've got a shady spot in the garden behind me here now. Like, you can see all sort of shrubs. A lot of them are trained up. Like this viburnum here, I train it up, remove the lower branches. So it's like a small tree, or what we call a standard shrub. And so that gives us space for planting underneath. So you get this development of quite almost like a woodland type habit, semi-shaded, and a little bit dry as well, because the bigger plants are taking up. So one group of plants which does very well in those situations are certain mahonia. And now there are the big growing mahonias like Charity and Winter Sun, which will grow up 5-6 feet high, flower in winter. But there's another group which are of the mahonia of the species called Uri bracteata, and that's the one there, this latest one called Meteor, and it looks almost like a fern. It's got lovely foliage.
Yeah.
There is a variety of it on the market called Soft Caress, whereas many mahonias are spiny, like a holly. The leaflets of each leaf look like a holly. This is much softer to touch, but this isn't Soft Caress. This is Meteor. So this gets yellow flower spikes, which come out in the middle of that in about October, November. So it's kind of late autumn, early winter flowering, which is really, really nice. It's an evergreen shrub. Will grow to about a metre height or thereabouts. And as I like, loves the shade. Hates the full sun. Loves the shade. But this is a variety of this, where the new growth in the spring is dark copper coloured. So you have this lovely spring display addition to it now, where you have the foliage which is going to come out with this lovely bronze and copper effect, which is really, really nice. So I was only reading about it on about a nursery, talking about it on one of the guys on LinkedIn, and then a couple of weeks later it comes up with one of the suppliers and says, right, I'll have to get that. And of course, I have the perfect spot in the garden. Believe me, the perfect spot. So that's Mahonia Eurybracteata Meteor. So look out for that. I think it's a really going to be a really good plant.
In the garden I was there today, that I was thinking, I've one of them planted in the garden there below, and it's the one with the spiky leaves on it.
Yeah.
Because I noticed I was picking up a few leaves from underneath it, and you wouldn't know you're picking them up. So it's the other version, the spiky leaves.
They're sticking the glove. Yeah. No, that. So then another one, which I've loved this plant for quite a long time, and it's a plant called Heptacodium myconioides. Give you the look at it there. And the Heptacodium myconioides is commonly known as the seventh sun plant. I don't know why. And it's tied up here onto a bamboo cane, and if we take that off, the branches will spread out. It's a large shrub or a small tree. It's got beautiful foliage. You can't see it now on the young plant so well. The foliage will kind of bend down like that in a bow, and really, really nice. It's deciduous, but the real beauty of this is around this time of year, through kind of August and September, as on the label there, you get these white flowers come out, and they're beautifully scented. And I've admired this now for a long time, and I had it in a garden in the past, but in the gardens which we planted up in Johnstown Garden Centre, what we call the Inspiration Gardens, I put in one of these last year, and has grown brilliantly. It's done really, really well. And I didn't expect it to flower for a couple of years, but it's flowering great this year. And just the scent from it is beautiful. And it's like, right, I'm going to have to source that and get it in for sale in the garden centre. But also I wanted one for the garden too. So I got that in. So the Heptacodium myconioides, it's super plant. And I have a spot coming for that. Not quite ready. But I will have a spot for that one, and but it's nice. Now, you like your rock and roll, don't you, Anthony?
Yeah,
you like to rock. So this is a Peruvian lily. Look at that, beautiful flowers, and it's a very lovely variegated foliage. It's flash, it's stunning. This will grow up to about 80-90 centimetres in height. And like Peruvian lilies, they just flower for months on end. So these will flower right through until the first frost. They'll keep on going. So they're starting about mid-June, and they'll keep on going and flowering right through until October or so. They're super. So, and you can see there's more flower buds coming up at the top there. Lovely variegated leaves. The lovely flowers on that. Actually, when it comes out with deadheading, alstroemerias are different. There's different rules for alstroemerias. I'm not going to do it now, but when the flower stems finish like this, instead of chopping off the top of it, you get the whole stalk and you pull the whole thing up, even if a bit of root or something comes with it. And that rejuvenates the plant and encourages to send up new shoots, and you get more and more flowers. So alstroemerias, not just the old flowers, you take up the whole stem as well, and they'll keep on flowering and flowering brilliantly. So this is the alstroemeria, and it's one called Rock and Roll. It's a winner on so many levels, isn't it?
Does it grow in pots?
Oh yeah, it'd be a good one for pots. For big pots, it will be fine. You can rock and roll on the balcony, and it's a nice one. So I'll have rock and roll. Actually, upstairs in the garden, I'll tell you rock and roll. Oh, yeah, and you'll appreciate this. I have a dwarf palm as a type of Camadorrea, and it's Camadorrea metallica. Beautiful plant.
I didn't know there was one with the word metallica in it.
Yeah, it's not named after them now, but it just happened to mean it looks metallic. Has a nice metallic hue off it.
Yeah, the band didn't kind of bring out a plant.
No, they haven't got that far. I think they got beers and whiskies and all sorts of things. So maybe a plant is next. So you like your grasses, don't you?
Yeah, I have a lot of grasses on my balcony. I've kind of come to realize they're the easiest to look after when you're
You
busy.
can, yeah, they can be really, really
And
nice.
I have a kind of vast variety. One that's actually standing out to me at the moment, it's basically looking out when I look out my balcony door, and it's kind of planted. I have two of them in one of the planters, and has a lovely green, but then it has the red tips on it. And I'm
Oh, the Imperata Red Baron.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it kind of is starting to. It looks stunning when I look out. It's kind of. I planted I think last year, but this year it seemed to have thrived. There's two of them in the kind of sleeper bed, and they've thrived, and I just love the red tips on them.
Ah, super. Yeah. No, no, it's a lovely one. Well, this one now, this might be tempting you to add to your grass collection. Look at this beauty. Look at that. Lovely dark foliage. 50 centimeters in height, so not too big. Perfect for a pot, perfect for a balcony. And they got these lovely, fluffy flowers coming out on it now. Lovely tails with kind of a pinkish tinge to them. And this is a new variety of Pennisetum. And when the Pennisetum up to this, not all of them are hardy, but they're promising that this one is hardier than other Pennisetums. On a balcony or somewhere like that, it should be fine anyway, no problem at all. And so it's only starting to come out into flower now. And as these flower stalks elongate, they'll hang over even more. And as the season progresses, they'll turn to a deeper red in colour. That's going to be absolutely stunning.
I have a spot for one. I have a spot for two of them.
Actually, you can see the picture on it there, like how red the flowers are going to get. So it's going to be really, really lovely. So this one is called Tiny Tails. So you might have ponytails already. This is Tiny Tails, stiff ponytails. So this is Pennisetum Tiny Tails. It's a new variety just out this summer in the last few weeks. And yeah, I think that's going to be a real winner. Well, people are picking it up just by the look of it now at the minute. And hopefully now it proves to be as hardy as the growers say it is. And it's one which we can that. So I've got a spot in the garden outside, earmarked for that. I said, that's the perfect spot for it. And we'll see. We'll give it the hardiness test over this winter, and we'll see if it's still here this time next year.
I have, behind my water blade, I have one or two grasses, but the ponytails just kind of get out of hand and just, you know what I mean? So I need
hanging out.
Yeah, I'm after cutting them back. I don't know how many times. They just keep getting out of hand. And they're not giving me, with the burnt kind of effect of the timber. I'm just looking at that. I'm just thinking they might be a better fit for kind of giving me that effect.
That one's mine.
Yeah, you've kind of. I think you've sold me on one on that already. I'm kind of looking at it.
Yeah. It's coming into that time of year though, where the grasses really are coming into their own, though, aren't they? Like there's there's a lot of stuff out there. Further down in the garden, I have the miscanthus will be coming into flower now, and I've probably mentioned this one already. I think on the podcast, Miscanthus serengeti. It's absolutely looking fantastic in flower now. And it's not such there are bigger miscanthus than it, but it's just a lovely mass of floral display at the minute, which will last a long time. And the miscanthus are really starting to come into their own now, end of August, September. There'll be lots of other ones looking good. And keeping with our rock and roll theme, there's a panicum, which is a lovely upright grass. It has these long green shoots, and then the flowers are coming out, and they're lovely kind of airy flowers above it, but really kind of beautiful form to the plant. And then it's lovely texture. And there's a couple of ones, but this one, which I have in mind for you now, which has got this bluish kind of foliage to it, lovely flowers on the top, and it's called Panicum Heavy Metal. So we're going from rock and roll to heavy metal.
I think
that's a lovely one.
By adding them to the balcony, I can kind of go. I'm into my kind of metal. Like, but I can always say, look,
Yeah.
this is what I'm doing with my balcony.
Yeah, the balcony that rocks.
The balcony that rocks. And then
Yeah.
I suppose with grasses, they give us kind of a structure every year, and there's lots we can do like in between our grasses. There's a lot of plants that you can kind of
Yeah.
use in a planting scheme that kind of
Yeah.
thrives. As I said, I found it out this year with the alliums. They really stand out in with grasses as well. Like,
Absolutely, the alliums for being. Do you know what? I was just driving there today up through Ballymun in Dublin, and they've done a new kind of park in the center, right in the centre of Ballymun. And I never thought I'd say this, kind of that. I was driving up through Ballymun and I was admiring the planting. It was really, really beautiful, and it was Stipper ponytails was a lot of the grasses in it, and they had groups and then single plantings of the black-eyed Susan Rudbeckia Goldstrom and other plants through it, and yeah, it's kind of like the public planting has taken on a whole kind of new dimension in recent years. So it's not the typical sort of a tree and a bit of mown grass and a bit of a flower bed. This was beautiful, and yeah, I didn't. It's a credit to whoever's designed it and done it there. Just driving up the road through it and a copy eye and look over, stopped at the lights, and it's in, of course, beautiful day with the sunshine there this morning in it, but these grasses gently swaying in the wind, the yellow daisies with the black centres, the rudbeckias there going, and it look beautiful. And it's actually going to be really easy for them to look after, because they'll allow for a few things to self-seed, give it a bit of a cut back once a year maybe, and up it will come in the spring. And there's probably other things going to be coming through on that, which, because it's newly planted, we haven't seen. And yeah, it's kind of, I wasn't expecting to see, like, and I'd driven past and seen him doing the park, and I was sort of expecting to see the usual, kind of what we've seen over the years. But no, this was stunning. So yeah,
yeah, there's more.
sure.
There's more
Next time
talk.
anybody's heading up to IKEA, just go down into Ballymun and have a look at this bit of planting. It's really, really nicely done.
Yeah, I think we're kind of the public spaces are. There's more thought going into the planting. I found even in my own town, they kind of done up the roads through the town, but they added a lot
Yeah,
of planting in, and all the planting is like there's Rebecca's. There's a lot of variety in it, and there's a load of there's grasses and everything. But every bed going through the town now is looking. It needed that kind of bit of planting, but there's a lot more thought in the planting along the kind of going through the town, like, whereas there wouldn't have been any kind of planting like that along the road, like as you're going through. And a lot of people
yeah,
have said it to me that, I was passing through Carrick and I was heading to Waterford, and I noticed you've a lot of, new kind of planting in your town, and it's getting a lot of, people kind of realising. So there was a lot of thought went into, the design and what plants they used.
yeah. It's great. It inspires people, and there's lots of things which go really nice with the grass. Do you know the agastache? That the plant. It's got. I've one over here, and it's. Hold on, I'm going to try something here. See if it'll follow me over. The agastache is over here. This one with the blue flowers. Take a bit of a. Get comfortable there. So this is the agastache or agastache, and there's lots of varieties like blue adder and stuff on the market now. And these ones, they're not long lived, but they self seed a lot. And particularly here where I have like the gravel in the garden here, they self seed around and they'll come up here and there. So that one actually that I took the flower off is a self seeded plant. That's why it's out at the front of the border. I probably wouldn't have planted it there if it was got one in a pot and stuck it in, but I saw it to grow there, so all right, I'll leave it. and it's got the lovely blue flowers, and they mingle beautifully, like with miscanthus and panicum flowers, your stipa ponytails that come up. They got these square stems. They don't need any support, so they're very robust for kind of windy situations. They'll take a lot of swaying and rocking. Here we go, rocking again, and they won't do they won't have any problem with being broken. And then actually another bonus of these is the leaves of these have a lovely sort of minty smell from them. Really kind of gorgeous smell from them. So look out for the agastaches, particularly for combining with grasses. They're super plants. And then the echinaceae, which are related to the rudbeckias, they're great with the grasses too. And even like some of the taller heucheras, you got your foliage there, which will be nice through the year later on, and the airy sort of flowers too. And I like also the scabious, scabiosa, the blues and pinks with the smaller grasses. They can give you a lovely kind of combination too. Yeah, so there's lots you can do with grasses. And yeah, a lot of people say, oh, they spread too much or they'll look untidy, but they just haven't seen the right grasses. They haven't been to Ballymun.
No, I'm a big fan of them, and no matter what kind of garden I'm kind of doing the planting scheme for or whatever, I kind of, have to add in, because as I said to you, you get that kind of, when everything else is not there, or kind of finished flowering, you have still something in the garden to kind of catch your eye.
Exactly, and particularly like later in the season as you head into the frosty mornings and the flowers are going over a bit, the grasses can often still really look great at that time of year, so they extend your season of interest right through into kind of November or so. They can look at, and December, they can still look really, really good.
Yeah, and they kind of, when you get a bit of wind too, there's so much to see,
Yeah,
like,
the whole
like
kind of sway
sensory.
of them in the wind.
They're kind of great
Yeah,
for sensory kind of planting.
that's true. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, so yeah, definitely experiment with the grasses. It's a welcome addition to a garden is to have some grasses there.
Yeah. So there's anything else you would like to cover before we finish up, or are you happy?
Well, I suppose the one thing again, I think last time we were talking, we'd had a hot spell as well, and we're in a nice sunny spell. I find the garden here now has been really dry the last kind of week or so, and so watering the pots, keep up with the watering and everything, and particularly newly planted plants. Water well, get into it. And remember, if you're watering with the hose, 30 seconds with the hose is probably about half a watering can full. So use that as a guide in terms of making sure you get enough water onto the plant. So I'll be watering the hydrangeas, probably all right for tonight. I'll get away with it. But tomorrow now evening, I'll have to water the hydrangeas in the pots and, well, the rest of the pots as well. And yeah, just check out, keep up with the watering. That's the main thing. Enjoy the garden. Get out and have a barbecue, or yeah, enjoy the garden and the weather while you have it, and why not? That's the main thing. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, I have to, when I finish here, I have to water my many. And I suppose too with the grasses, I kind of find you don't have to get out there every night with grasses, really.
No, they're much more drought tolerant. Many of them, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's, I kind of, the rest of my planting is kind of, yeah, but like the azaleas that, I kind of need to, but like I could leave the grasses, a few nights, and they're always robust.
Yeah, yeah, they're
I
forgiving.
find,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely, yeah.
um, yeah, and I suppose finally there, while I have you on there, what about just want a brief thing, feeding? Um, should we be
Yeah,
feeding our
for feeding. So
plants?
the pots, I'll keep feeding those, and once a week or so, and I have one of these hose end feeders with a liquid feed. So it's the brand Miracle Grow, and it saves me having to mix up water can after watering can, put that on, put the feed in it, run around. So do that, keep that once a week. So for stuff like in the pots, which I want to really keep going with the floral display, like the begonias, the petunias, all those sort of things. I'll keep feeding those, even maybe the hydrangeas a bit and those sort of things. And I'll keep feeding those through August and September. But for a lot of stuff then, if they're out in the garden and your roses and stuff in the garden, you basically don't want to be doing any much feeding from now on. And giving a lot of feed for plants at this time of year, it can actually result in a burst of growth, which sounds great at first, but that growth often then doesn't have time to harden up before the cold of winter, and it's much more prone then to frost damage, cold damage, and even diseases and things. So for plants out in the garden, more permanent plants, I would say, don't bother with the feeding now, and even with the grass lawns, hold off the high nitrogen feeds at this stage. Let the tissues of the plants strengthen and harden before the weather turns and gets cold. If you do a lot of high nitrogen feeding in your lawns at the minute, you're only asking for trouble later on with fungal diseases and stuff. So ease off the feeding. Keep it up with the pots to keep that summer floral display going as long as possible, because you're going to be chucking them out anyway come the cold weather. So yeah, we're not off the hook entirely.
No, and that just kind of ends it. I just kind of had it down on my notes there that I wanted to bring it up about feeding. That was all, and I said here I'd throw it in. So I think that was an absolute great, I think successful.
Our first video, I mean, didn't have any mad technical difficulties or anything like that. And it was so nice to be for me anyway, to be sitting outside doing this, and like, it's probably the last chance to do an outdoor podcast. So
we might by the time we get to September, we still could. When they go back to school,
you never know,
get away with one.
Yeah, you never know. I might have to light the candles though.
So look, thank you so much, Ciaran, for jumping on and having a bit of a catch up.
It's a pleasure as always. Thanks a million.
Sharing some of your knowledge with my listeners. It's been an absolute pleasure as always.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Premier Garden Show, and we will see you in the next episode. Be sure to like, share and subscribe, and join all our social media.
I built 4 gardens at Chelsea this year with some amazing teams who I work with. So that was entertaining. I've built 2 gardens at Chelsea before, but I've never built 4. And that was a massive undertaking. I've been building show gardens at Chelsea, Hampton Court, Tatton, Chatsworth since 2012. And it's basically progressed. We finally got the dream and we got to Chelsea in 2017. And I've been there every year since. Like I say, 14 gold medals later. I've got the grey hair to prove it as well. Yeah, I'm still going, even though I'm not landscaping day to day anymore. So it's, I'm enjoying it. I really enjoy it. I mean, it's very stressful, Chelsea. It's very hard, especially when you do 4 bloody gardens, like. But I could only do those gardens with the most amazing teams that I work with there. Do you know what I mean? Who are, close friends of mine. And, we all put 100% effort in. And this year we got 2 golds at Chelsea. Then what I call my regular team, my pool of guys, which is like Mitchell Salthouse, who's my right-hand man. And then we've got Justin from JJH Landscapes, who's an amazing, amazing landscaper. He won the APL awards, and he's big in the APL, Justin. And he's a quality lad. Then we've got Paul from Olive Tree Landscape, and we've got Henry from HG Gardens Woburn, another big APL guy. It was designed by Paul Harvey Brooks. We had Joe from Orin Hortis. We had Rob Woodhouse from Green Fingers. And yeah, we was built for the RNIB, and we got best in show, best construction, and gold medal. So we were quite pleased with that, how it goes. Glenn and Jack as well, Copeland, the joiners, the carpenters, they are amazing. Glenn's been a friend of mine now for 30 years, and he is just an amazing carpenter. What he can't do isn't worth doing, and his son as well, Jack.
do 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 do.